From city staff, we have Monica Bortolini, who is with us. She is the city's floodplain administrator, so some of her expertise will be pertinent as it relates to some of the conditions on this site, because there are some floodplain considerations as well. And so she is our resident subject matter expert on that. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Jim Harmon and his team.
Thank you,
You
Jennifer.
can just wheel down, wheel up.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Jim Harmon. I am the managing partner of both properties, Beaupre Farms 1 and Beaupre Farms 2, obviously historically Nishida Farms. We're here tonight to kind of clarify some of the issues that swirled around the last meeting and to provide historical context to the property and the conditions on the property, and also some of the engineering challenges that this property presents. So our two properties, Beaupre number 1, we annexed again, as Jennifer said, in 2007. Annexation applications, concept plan amendments were submitted today to the city, in fact, formally. We've been discussing them for several years now, but today we were able to make the formal submittal. Tonight, the way we'd like to run our side of the presentation, we'll have Ava Garner, who is, let me introduce my team, sorry. We have Ava Garner, who is the president of Centennial Archaeology here. We have Pam Hoare, who's our principal planner and project manager with Tetra Tech, and Cameron Grant, who's our local land use attorney. Tonight, we're going to open with Ava providing historical context for the property. When she completes her side of it, I'll come back up and discuss some of the engineering challenges that are part of the project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ava.
Good evening. I guess I'm going to go ahead and correct Jim. I am not the president of Centennial. I'm just a historian. So, so basically, I am going to talk about the prior evaluation of the property in 1997. It was evaluated through a state historic fund to evaluate unincorporated buildings in Boulder County. So at that time, it was evaluated as eligible for the NRHP under Criterion A, and then also for the Boulder County landmark designation under Criterion 1, 501A. It was evaluated this way for association with the development of agriculture after World War II, and the cultural ties to Japanese immigrants who established vegetable farms and roadside produce stands in the Longmont area. It was also potentially evaluated as eligible under criteria consideration G for being a rare property type, as there used to be a bathhouse on the property. It was not evaluated for Longmont historic landmark designation because it wasn't part of Longmont at that time. It did receive official OHP concurrence in October of 2000. However, it is not listed on the NRHP, and it doesn't appear on the NRHP database maintained by the National Park Service. It is also not listed on the Boulder County Register for Historic Landmark. So go to the next slide. So the current evaluation that I have for the property is that my evaluation is that it is not eligible for the NRHP or for Boulder County, or not Boulder County, Longmont historic landmark, mostly because of the loss of integrity, physical and historical integrity of the property, because of the removal of nearly all of the buildings on site. So let's see if I can. So the map on, I guess, my left, I don't know if it's on everybody's left, is the plan map from the 1997 documentation. So it kind of shows the layout of all of the buildings that are there. The second map is what we recorded in 2025, which is this year. Currently, there are only 4 standing buildings, which we designated as feature 1, feature 2, and I think feature 8. Anyway, it's this building here. I don't know. That one is standing. That one dates to the 1980s, or late 1970s, I believe. There's this building here, and then this building here. The remainder of the property, all of these features are pretty deteriorated concrete pads that are very difficult to discern from the surrounding environment. So basically, go back to here. We're kind of evaluating it based on the 7 aspects of historical integrity. The location is maintained because it hasn't been moved. None of the buildings one of the buildings has been moved, the residence that's further west. And let's see. But so basically, I'm assessing that building is not a contributor to the overall property. So location is maintained, but I'm assessing that it is not, it's not enough to support, it's inefficient, and cannot on itself constitute eligibility. Setting has been compromised based on road development, sewer easements, housing subdivisions to the south, and so it's no longer rural in character. It's has more modern development. Design and materials, workmanship, those are all deteriorated because the buildings have been removed. The standing buildings have been modified with multiple additions, covering of windows and doors with plywood. So therefore, the materials for the windows and doors are no longer there. There is modern replacement of siding and roofing that postdates the period of significance for the farm during the 1950s and 70s. So overall, the condition of the buildings is pretty poor. There's rotting and splintering siding, weathered shingles, rusted metal components on the corrugated metal buildings, broken glass. The concrete foundations are crumbling, very difficult to discern from the surrounding environment. So as the building or as the property stands right now, I feel like I guess I'm assessing it as not maintaining the 7 or not maintaining the 7 aspects of historical integrity because all of the buildings have been removed that associate with the farm during the period of significance. Also, the Nishida produce sign, road sign, has been removed. So I think whatever stands right now cannot display feeling or association with the prior operations of the farm. Yeah, that's all I have. So I guess I'll turn it back over to Jim.
Thank you. I might add a few things. We acquired the Nishida property 5 years ago, which is a correction to the record from the last meeting. We have owned the Beaupre parcel for about 23 years. We acquired the Nishida parcel from a lender who had acquired it from a previous owner. I don't know if it was foreclosure, but the structures that exist there today are exactly the structures that were there when we acquired the property 5 years ago. Substantially, they're the same, except that they had been vacant as best we could discern for at least 10 years when we acquired the property. There had been a commercial user in the steel shed building from the 70s, but all the other buildings were vacant and uninhabited. The 2 homes that are on the property had both been vandalized and were boarded up at the time we acquired the property, and we have tried to maintain security and tried to maintain that condition. We've had several incidences with vagrancy and homeless encampments and things, and we've worked with Boulder County Sheriff's Department to keep that to a minimum. But realistically, the structures are uninhabitable even today. Again, as Ava just said, it's just the significance is not alone enough. We need the integrity of the historic part of the property. I remember when we were annexing Beaupre 1, and I don't recall any specific agricultural buildings over there, so it wasn't something that grabbed us even then. Where they went to from 97 to the date we acquired the property, I don't know. Here is the biggest engineering hurdle on the property, and this is a city-mapped floodplain that was identified through city drainage studies. And we worked on the first drainage study in 2013 or 14. I don't recall if the floodplain was extensive as this, but Monica has been working on this mapping for at least several years. As you can see, all of the structures are in the floodplain. Now, it's a city floodplain, it's not a FEMA floodplain, but a flood is a flood. And water doesn't really care where a line on a map is. In a 100-year event, all the structures on this property are inundated. The flooding goes south through the neighborhoods to our south, all the way down to Oligarchy Ditch, and actually farther. It doesn't show on this, but it even goes farther south. This is what has become the accepted drainage improvement plan for the city, which, when fully implemented, takes all of the property to our south out of the floodplain. We can implement two portions of this pond and a good portion of this pond, which mitigates something north of 60% of the flooding to our south and on our property. In order to do that, we have to excavate the pond, we have to fill the surrounding area, back up here, fill the surrounding area all the way up into here with between 1 and 3 feet of fill, depending on the location. The farther south on the property, the deeper the fill, which means from an engineering standpoint, every one of these buildings is under the new grade. So in order to preserve them, you would have to remove them, remove the foundation, add the fill, build a new foundation, and put the buildings back on. The city, in its own study, their own consultant in 2022, I believe, or 2023, looked at this as they were looking at all the potentialities to mitigate the flooding. And their own consultants said the project did not believe it was a reasonable investment due to the cost, due to the condition of the current structures. So from a drainage engineering standpoint, the structures, regardless of their condition, are basically have to come out. Next, there's a sewer easement that was approved to serve properties to our north and west that comes right down our property line and then goes to the east along Highway 66. That sewer easement runs right through the middle of the old produce room, the Quonset hut style building. Additionally, that building is actually encroaching into the right-of-way. If you follow this line across, that's the future right-of-way line of Highway 66, which of course is a major arterial from eastern Weld County all the way almost to Estes Park. So this is someday this entire road is getting built, and even without us, that building is coming down someday. You take all those things together, and it just shows that saving the structures is not a viable preservation option. We personally believe that preserving the history of the farm is easier to do through commemoration of the accomplishments of the Nishitas here in Longmont. It's a family with a rich history here. We know some of the members of the family. It can be commemorated in many ways. We have talked about naming the neighborhood park, which is going to be built after the family, and possibly doing some monumentation. Maybe the main thoroughfare, and again, some monumentation. We have discussed a library annex with the city as part of our annexation, our annexation offerings. And that would be wonderful to name after the Nishitas and then have some commemorative historical things inside for the family. I mean, there are many ways we can do that. We'd like to tell that story. We'd like to preserve that story. And we think this is the right approach. We hope that the commission sees it the same way we do. And we'd like you to make that recommendation to the city council. We have worked on some annexation agreement language, fairly simple, just a paragraph that would make sense, that would give the commission some input, and allow the project to move forward through the rest of the process, knowing that the Nishita family is going to have their history commemorated in a meaningful way with this project. With that, I'm open to any questions anyone has, if there's anything we missed.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the time and the presentation. Before I open it up, I do want to just get some clarification on exactly what buildings we are looking at, because if we look at the staff, the packet, there's a lot more structures than appear to be associated with this particular location that you're discussing. And so I think there's a potential for a little lack of clarity as to what structures are really, I mean, even if you can do a.
So what was included in the attachment was the original inventory, site inventory form of this property. So it included some information that was, and it was prepared before some of these buildings were demolished. So this is going back pretty far. So there was that information provided, and then there was the updated letter at the beginning of that attachment. So.
Yeah, I understand that, but for example, in page 48 of the packet shows a granary, right, at 911 Ute Road. But the mapping that you're showing with this metal building on the road appears to be a property much further east.
Yes.
That is on the Beaupre #1 property and not the Nishita property.
So that's confusing. I want to make sure that we're not looking at buildings on the #1 property that in as part of this report and thinking, wow, we should be, because that granary looks pretty cool, and we're going to get hung up on that, and it's not on the property that we're talking about, correct?
Correct.
So can we, maybe a little clarification, if you could pull up Google Street View or something and just clarify the buildings that we're looking at on #2, I think would be very helpful to this conversation.
Sure, and my apologies.
Yes, so my question,
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
You've got to just add, just for your, you've got to do that, and then I got to call on you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And then
I'm
give
sorry,
you the
sorry.
floor, because this is how we
Yes,
know who's
okay.
talking and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right, it's all good. It gets recorded, and I can tell you from experience, having watched a meeting, that if we don't follow this procedure, it doesn't actually get recorded, and we don't know what you're saying, right? So it is actually really important that we go through this. It's not just
All
me
right, why
being,
is my little man not working
pain.
for me?
okay. All right, yeah,
Okay,
so
there we go.
Commissioner Tarek, you have a question?
Is it on? Okay, my
Yeah.
apologies. Okay, so that was my question in the attachments that we were looking at. on the architectural inventory form, number 24, where it says associated buildings, features, and objects. So is that list both from 1 and 2?
I think so. So,
Okay, did not have your report.
I think I
Okay.
can answer this.
Okay.
I think I can answer this question.
The wrong property was, the master report was for, the larger report was for the adjacent property, not for this one.
We were
Okay.
requested as part of our application process for the amended comprehensive plan and the amended concept plan to provide a historical update for Beaupre number 1. Beaupre number 1 has already been determined to be non-historical. We provided that update because we were asked to, and it was part of our application. It's really not germane to tonight's presentation and to what's being decided tonight. That's already decided.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep, sorry about that.
Okay, so you've brought up the street view. I think it's just really important for the commissioners to understand what we're really looking at. So that metal building on the right-hand side of this view is the one that you're talking about that was potentially sacrificial to future expansion of the highway.
Yes, the highway itself, the right-of-way of the highway runs through the building. I think it's cattywampus a little bit. It's like 4 feet on one end and 3 feet on the other. But the sewer easement, I think, runs 12 feet right through the middle of that building. And that's the sewer easement, right down Highway 66.
Right, and then so to the west of that building, I think there's actually 2 structures in those trees, and then there's a metal building behind that.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Can we manipulate that view just to be clear? There you go, yeah.
It's kind of tough.
Yeah, it gets tough to, but
Yeah.
this provides a fair amount of context, I think.
Yes.
That is important.
In those trees are 2 small homes. One was actually just moved onto the site, was not historically part of the site. Who occupied it, I don't know for sure. I think the one to the right that's behind the trees that has had 2 additions put on it over the years since it was built, I think in the 50s, was the likely home where the Nishitas lived when they were on the property. The white building with the red doors was like a 1970s steel building built for storage or, whatever other uses. As long as I've been involved, the only building that ever had any occupancy was the white building. None of the homes were ever occupied, and the steel building along Highway 66 was never used, at least in my personal experience. So the two formerly occupied homes, again, when we acquired it, had been abandoned. They had been boarded up. They had been vandalized. We continue, if you've been out there and seen the site, we continue to add new boards. And if I personally stop by pretty much every time I come up for a meeting. It's a rare time when I go up there and somebody hasn't ripped one of the boarding of the windows or doors off and either gotten in or tried to get in. So we do our best, but there's not much we can do. There's nobody there.
Right, yeah, appreciate that. Okay, I'd like to open up the floor to any commissioner questions. If you get any commissioners questions of staff or of the applicant. So you just hit that mic on, but to the right. There you go. And then okay. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you.
Okay.
You have a very nice little paragraph you're presenting. And as if I was in your shoes, probably it's written in somewhat vague language. What gives us assurance that if we end up going down this route, that we'll get some of the things that might be important to the Historic Commission?
So typically the annexation agreement language is fairly general, and it provides that the following annexation, if the annexation is approved, it basically binds the applicant to come back to the commission as they flesh out their development plans and such, so that they can come back to the commission and have the commission weigh in on and come to an agreement of what an acceptable preservation plan is.
Okay.
I would say 2 examples I can think of that aren't necessarily annexation specific and predate some of the commissioners here. There was a planned unit development for for this Layton property that was over at 119. There's now a 7-Eleven there, and the original discussion with the commission, and that the commission, I believe, was on board with initially, was to do some type of commemorative approach. Ultimately, the applicant decided that they had to do some land dedications for a greenway project anyway, so they ended up dedicating the barn to the city. I don't know that the city would be interested in acquiring any more historic agricultural buildings at this time. But so that was one example, and that was where, we did come back to the commission. They came back to the commission to present options, and that was discussed. But that was a condition of their zoning, rezoning. So the other one would be Wallace Fifth, so the Carlson Farmstead over by Prospect. Again, not quite analogous because it was a landmark property. It's the original landmark designation applied to an entire parcel, and it was modified to apply to just the buildings. And part of that is they had to bring back a building relocation plan for approval by the commission. So this language does put the onus on the applicant to come back before the commission, and because it is in the annexation, it's memorialized in the annexation agreement, which is adopted by ordinance. As future development applications for the property come forward, the department reviewer would be holding the feet to the fire, and typically in these types of situations, long-range planning staff can weigh in as well, at which we would also be another check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Yeah, Commissioner O'Day.
And I realize this is really early because you're not even annexed or anything. What is the plan, since you have to raise all of this land and everything? You talked about a park. Like, how far away would that park be? Do you have any idea kind of
Well,
what this is going to look like?
I appreciate that question. We submitted all our plans today. There's going to be a 10-acre park in the center of the project, just kind of north of the center line, I'd say a quarter mile north of where the buildings are now. In the center of the project, there's going to be a 10-acre school site dedicated or provided, not necessarily dedicated, but provided on the site. A riparian corridor up in the northeast corner, commercial, multiple residential uses. We think it's going to be a great project, so.
But this part of the land would be housed?
Mostly, down in this corner, because it's right adjacent to Highway 66.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you'll see your neighborhood commercial, your retail uses. The things that really are lacking kind of west of Main Street. Many years ago, we envisioned like 1 million square feet of commercial and office here. We call that pre-Amazon. But today we think we're going to provide a really valuable mixed-use project for the city.
Okay. So theoretically, commercial probably in this area.
Yes,
Okay.
theoretic, most
Okay.
likely.
Okay.
Other commissioner questions? The applicant or staff? No? I mean, I would offer, well, yeah, you're going, okay.
This isn't a question so much as
Commissioner Jacoby,
a
sir.
comment. Again, it sounds like there's a lot of hurdles to preserving any of these buildings in a meaningful way. But again, the Nishida property is important, and it was pointed out at the last meeting, we're not the Historic Commemoration Commission, we're the Historic Preservation Commission. So this is beyond our purveyance maybe, but, it'd be nice to see some kind of meaningful recognition of the Nishitas and what they provided, and it sounds like you're trying to do that. But again, one main street I don't think doesn't quite get people to say, "Oh, this was the Nishita property." Between the last time you came for presentation, this one, for some reason, I came across an article, 18 untranslatable Japanese words we need in English. 18 streets in Japanese, and maybe like a community garden space set aside for community garden might be more meaningful for a previous farmer, with a plaque saying that this was a Nishita property, da-da-da-da-da, for people coming in. But I would like to see significant, meaningful recognition of the Nishitas, not just like Main Street named after Nishita Avenue or something.
I'd like to respond to that. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that is our plan. I mean, I was listing sort of ideas that have been thrown out. We 100% will provide meaningful historical reference to the family. And I would also argue that historic preservation is not just about buildings. Historic preservation is the preservation of history. It's the stories, it's the people, it's what happened there. I could save one of those houses maybe. With enough money, you can do anything, right? I save it, I fix it. Somebody moves into it. Does anybody driving down the street know that that was the Nishita home? No, but if we build a monument, we have a memorial park, or we have a turnoff at the entry, we would personally really like, if we're going to provide a library annex, we would like the city to name it the Nishita Municipal Library Annex. And then how nice would it be to walk in the door of that and see pictures and history, like you see in some other spots around town. Those are the kinds of things we're looking at. I mean, we understand this subject. We really, truly do. I know you hear a lot of things, but people who know me know that when I say this is what I want to do, this is pretty much what I plan to do. So.
I appreciate those comments. My comment was essentially building on the notion of when we have lost the integrity of the structures, right? Then that's all we're left with is sort of the stories, right? And so it becomes even more important to tell those stories. But because it's tied to a physical place, in the past, it's also a component of preservation is often simply documentation, right? I mean, there's a whole historic HABS, Historic American Building Survey. There's an entire component that's simply about documenting the structures that we have that are meaningful in our country, so that if they're lost, there's a way to show that that's what was there. And so from my perspective, and this is just me telling you my 2 cents, that commemoration component, from my perspective, ought to have some sort of visual, a map, photos, representations, a way for somebody to walk in and not only get told the story, but really get a visual sense of what that was like. And here are the, photographs or we probably don't have any drawings, so photographs of these buildings, and this is where they sat. This is how the site was organized. It doesn't necessarily be a 3-dimensional diorama or something, but some way to really communicate that 3-dimensional story of the property as much as the people, because it's really tied together. And so that would be my recommendation and what I would be looking for in the future were I to be still sitting here.
These are all things that we will be taking into account as we try to figure out how to do this. It's one thing if it ends up inside a building, a library annex, or the school. It's another thing if it's outside, the park, the entry monument. Some of those things can be difficult to maintain in an outside environment, but if we can get them inside somewhere. So the key is to figure out a way to honor the history of the Nishita family in Longmont, and that's what we're going to work very diligently to do.
Okay, I appreciate that. Jennifer, I'm not seeing in our packet a true sort of staff recommendation for what we're,
So at this point, it's not necessarily a recommendation, but it's essentially moving them through the process and with the understanding that once the annexation agreement is being developed, we'll have that we'll bring that final condition back to the commission for formal approval.
so you're not necessarily looking for a motion and action from the commission then?
You're welcome to make a motion. If you do, it would probably be something to the effect that the applicant team should bring a final annexation agreement condition at the time when the annexation agreement's being drafted. Because the full application package has just gone in, so at this point it's going to be a little while before we have an annexation agreement drafted. So that would be the appropriate time as the project team is putting that together. We would bring that specific condition back to you just to confirm. And if you're good with the language as proposed, you can absolutely make a motion that this language is acceptable to you and will be considered once the annexation agreement's finalized.
Can you put that language back up on the screen?
I might add that I think it's important to us to have a motion tonight because we're going to be in this process for at least another year, maybe more. There are going to be new commissioners, there are going to be new council members, and we think it's really important that there be action. And we would like to see a motion of some kind, amending what we've said. We just made a suggestion based on what we've seen historically in Longmont. We're happy if you look at it, would like to change it. We're not stuck on that language. We think it's pretty good, though.
Commissioners, okay, great. Commissioner O'Day.
So I just had a question that kind of builds off what Sue is asking. I guess a lot of the things you're proposing are school and library, things that feel to me like they could get caught up in a lot of red tape, et cetera, may never happen. I mean, those are a long ways out. Kind of adding to her thing, what's the chance this just sits tabled for years and years and years because we can't decide where to put it, like a park or I don't know. And maybe this is something the commissioners can give me feedback on, whether this is something that maybe in the language it happens within a certain period of time or something, because I could see it getting lost in the bureaucratic shuffle.
So I can speak a little bit to the timing and the process. So when an annexation when an annexation is approved, part of the annexation agreement is a concept plan. Because there is a larger development proposal with the adjacent property, there's effectively a master concept plan, so that concept plan lays out general locations. It may not have phasing in terms of dates, but it does lay out general locations of where civic features and where parks would be. So you have some assurance of where it would be if you're looking at a building versus a park. Obviously, schools and libraries are more likely than parks to take a little longer, just given the nature of how they're financed and approved and such. The neighborhood park is a given, I would say.
It's 100% a
I would
given.
say it's, when we're doing developments like this, the neighborhood park is a given. So that is something to consider. But, we do have the annexation, the concept plans for the concept plans are a framework. So they aren't necessarily where every road and where every building is going to be, but it's a general location of the orientation of the site. So it is the framework for the future development, and future applications that come in to fully build out the property have to comply with that concept plan. So having that language, and depending on how you draft the annexation agreement language, that's kind of where you would get kind of your certainty. Obviously, the development world's a little wacky these days.
I might add to that, timing, we annexed the first part 18 years ago, and here we are tonight. So you just never know. I mean, we had plans to move forward immediately when we annexed the other property, and this drainage thing happened. And here we are 18 years later, still trying to figure it out.
2008 also happened.
Yeah, and 2008 happened, and Amazon happened, and I mean, the world changed, right? So, but typically the city makes us do things in phases, and those things are spelled out in the annexation agreement. So, I mean, it's certainly going to be reasonable for the city to say, with the community park, or by the time the community park is built, or, that's something that could be easily put into the language and in the agreement, which you will see again someday. And staff is, I mean, your staff, they don't roll over. I mean, they're very talented, and they know how to manage these things. So
I would just offer as a piece of comparison, those Latin barn piece probably came, I mean, that was a multi-year project. It came to us 3 or 4 times. They didn't get their planning commission approval until we ruled on what it was that came out of the HBC. Because it was in the annexation agreement, it had to come to HBC, and we basically negotiated what they were required to provide, and that became a condition of their planning commission approval. And so it's sort of all linked together. It's not smooth, but it's there. Yeah, right. So if it's recorded in annexation agreement language, then it's there, right?
It's legally binding.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Barnett.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the annexation agreement language, and the first part's pretty clear, the first sentence. The second sentence has got a lot of conditional phrases in it, which I think, if we had some time to look at and discuss, we might find a way to say that, which is more to what Chairman was just saying, but the idea that the plan is substantially in the conformance with the reasonable recommendations of the Historic Preservation Commission and staff. I'm not comfortable with that. I think that's just like saying, we'll kind of, as long as we're reasonable, it's okay. So it puts the onus on you to determine whether or not we're making reasonable recommendations. I think your heart's in the right place. I just think that the second sentence, I wouldn't support the second sentence of that language. And I don't think we can work out the words here, but it's not like we're in a rush to get this done today.
So I was going to offer just procedurally, given that the language would be finalized as the annexation agreement is finalized prior to going to Planning and Zoning Commission, and give the applicant direction to consider.
I'm just concerned, and again, our language, I understand what you're saying, and we're open to interpretation or revision of that language. What we're concerned about is moving forward through the process and kind of getting to where the chairman was at, with not being able to continue to move forward without coming back multiple times. We want to get to the point where we understand each other, that we're going to be, I guess, all we're really concerned about is understanding that this is going to be preservation through commemoration of the contribution of the Nishida family and the farm to the city. I'd be happy with language that pretty much just says that. I don't want to come back in 2 years and have somebody go, we think maybe we want to try and save one of those houses, and then have to go through this again. I think that's what we're looking for, if that makes sense.
So if we came out of tonight with a motion that acknowledged that the Preservation Commission understood that the structures that are existing on the site are intended to be removed, that the commission did not have an objection to that, that that we would require commemoration as part of the annexation agreement, and that we expect that we would review that language of the annexation agreement at a future date while it's running through the process.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
that so moved?
So let me see if I can frame that into a motion that Maria can capture in the minutes.
I was gonna say, nobody else wants to try to do that.
Right. It's right. I would move that that we a motion to acknowledge that on this site, the Beaupre Farm number 2, that the owner and developer will be removing the structures from the property, and that their requirement will be to prepare a plan for preservation by commemoration of the historical aspects of the property, and the exact language that would be placed in the annexation agreement, with the understanding that the exact language placed in the annexation agreement would come back before the Historic Preservation Commission for approval prior to its finalization.
That's pretty much how I was going to phrase it. So.
Okay.
And we're certainly in agreement with that.
You don't get to second it, though.
I know.
All right, okay. So I have made that motion. The motion has been seconded by Commissioner Barnett. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No? All right. Your motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll promise to follow through.
We will hold you to that.
Thank you very much.
I'm one of the staff reviewers on this, so.
So,
Good.
Jennifer's got your back.
All right. Okay, that's that was the big lift for this evening. At this point, just any commissioners that have a comment that they would like to offer to the group? I would, no, seeing none? Yeah, go ahead, yes, Commissioner Sibley. All right, Commissioner Sibley, your last chance.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, since this is my last meeting. It has been a great experience working with everyone, so I want to say thank you. I will be stalking you over the years, and I really look forward to seeing what the new team can accomplish. So it's been great. Happy to be a part of all this, so thank you.
We have very much enjoyed having you on this commission. We really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck moving forward. Any other commissioners? No? Okay. We do not have a city council rep present this evening, and so that leaves us one final motion. Okay, motion to adjourn from Commissioner Jacoby and seconded by O'Day. I'm not good as good on that side. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.